it's twofold. One thing is like I think just going back to at the very beginning, you gave a very apt definition of colorism, but I would love to unpack a little bit, like with everyone. I feel like the definition, and maybe I don't know, we all acknowledge this, but it just wasn't said out loud, or I just didn't hear it. But it's like colorism only exists when it's like because it's us weaponizing our color against one another, right? It's like I'm curious. You know, you asked about, you know, how have like certain men on the darker side of the spectrum like seen like light-skinned men, mm-hmm. But I think the question for us is like when have we, you know, when have we felt either discriminated ourselves by other skin folk, mm-hmm. For the color of our skin? Because like what I hear from that example, right, is like I immediately my head assumed that these two individuals were being discriminated against by white people. Like I didn't assume that they were being discriminated against by black people, but to me that is inherent to the definition of colorism, which makes it different, but still under the same umbrella of discrimination. And so I think that part of the reason, and you know, correct me if I'm wrong, everyone, you know, but I feel like the reason why we came here and why we wanted to gather with other skin folk is because we also wanted to unpack the fact that this feeling of discrimination and being othered and less than is so much more hurtful and drags us down so much more when it's coming from people who we believe are supposed to be our greatest allies, right? And it's like, and that's why like only at this point 30 years old, like however old we are, where it's just like fuck, like how much have I perpetuated this notion that like the people who I claim to love so much or who I should love so much, I have been a willing participant in their discrimination. And that, to your point, brother, like you were talking about, like it makes us, like it is a reconciliation point, which I feel like that is the start of this conversation, why we are here. So I just want to go back to that. But then the second part of the long part of that first part is, I feel like we've heard a lot from us men here tonight, and I don't say that because I think that you know the women owe us anything, but I would love to. I know that I personally would value hearing more of your perspectives, and if that is selfish, like you know, tell me to fuck off. But I think that the conversation would benefit from hearing more of the woman in the room.
Yes.
Well, for me, I realized that I was like portraying colorism against myself because my mom, like especially when she was younger, she was white passing. Everyone in my family was like a lighter shade than me and had like that like perfect type hair where like if it got wet it was like 3C, and I was just like, why can't I be that? Like I don't understand why I don't look like them. And just being around them, I saw them be like more favored from people just walking around or doing anything. And so when I was 7, like I begged my mom for a perm. I was like, this hair needs to be straight. I need to even the playing field, like, and to think that as a 7-year-old, to think that as a 7-year-old, like, I had internalized all that to that extent where I was just like, nah, like, I need to be more European in looks and everything. And so, even now recently, just like, I realized even I went natural, but then I would still rely heavily on like wearing like extensions or just wigs or whatever. And I was like, what's the point of going natural if I don't like love and appreciate the hair that's growing out of my head? And I just had such a like, I think I hated it. Yeah, definitely. Where I was just like, what is this? This is so like horrible. And now I'm getting to a point where I'm like, I like the hair that grows out of my head, and that is like such a big thing for me to say. But I think it's so crazy that I'm like almost 30 years old and I'm just now being like, I I like the hair that grows out of my head. Like, that should have been foundational. Like, I should have been coming out of the womb like, this is me. I love me like that little girl. I love my hair. I love my family. I love everything. And like that's how I wish I would have grown up. And even like thinking future in my kids, like I want to make sure that I'm constantly being like, you as you are enough and you're valued, because I didn't necessarily hear that much of that. And so yeah, like most of the colorism, because my preference for men is just like rainbow, everybody. As long as you're cute, like I'm like, you get a chance. So for myself, like it was just like I only like you in a certain way. And so it's just like, wow, like I was colorist against myself, and that was the big thing. And so yeah.
Your hair looks good.
James Baldwin, I'm going to take it back to what James Baldwin says, if the world, what the world does to you, if they do it long enough and effectively enough, you begin to do to yourself.
Yeah.
And you then become an accomplice to your own murderers. And that's our plight, yo. Like that
I think that speaks to the entertainment. Too.
That is
like,
our reality.
Artists know that they're putting things out. I think they're telling stories through their lens, through their scope. Like I was talking about media earlier. As an artist, I think you just write what you feel. You write what you write. And then it just so happens to perpetuate stereotypes. You look up 30 years later, like, I perpetuated stereotype.
Right.
Oh shit. But you ain't know, because you was just, this is what you were taught. This is what you were conditioned. I cut you off.
That's just our plight. And unfortunately, our foundation isn't being able to care for ourselves. And if we don't have a parent, a guardian, a caretaker, like whoever is in that adult position, who's aware enough to then be intentional enough to make sure that they cut across with a different message, a message of love, a message of affirmation, a message that we need, then we have to just find ourselves somehow, some way, and we don't know how long that's going to take. But the fact that you're there, and I think everybody else is there, or we're in the process of being wherever there is, that's where the magic is. And that's what we have to cleave on to. And that's what we have to be intentional about, whether it's grammatically correct or not. That black gonna be spelled with a capital B. Okay. You know what I mean? And that white gonna be a lowercase. You know what I mean? And if I see a sister outside, regardless of how much of a stranger it is, I'm gonna make sure I don't catcall, but I'm gonna be polite and respectful and just compliment and show love. If I see a brother, I'm gonna acknowledge you, even if it's just a quick nod, like something. Like we have to be so specific in our actions because of the stuff that we gotta work through.
We can't condemn each other. I think that was my thing. Like, as a guy who likes to joke, like I can't. As funny as it may be to me, and as lighthearted as it may be, that can kill someone else. Because I've been on the other side of that, where somebody's just being lighthearted, being funny, being cool, but they say the wrong thing that hits the wrong chord, and it'll jack you up for a month. You know what I'm saying? So I think we can't condemn light, dark, this, that, whatever. It is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like we're human. And we're beautiful, and we're different shades of black. That's what makes it great, because within my face, there's something lighter than wherever there is darker, wherever there is, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's part of it too for me, is just kill the condemnation of one another, even if it is innocently hilarious to me in some ways. You know what I'm saying? I gotta kill a lot of that, because that could hurt my brother and sister. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So take that responsibility.
Let's make that be the next move then. You know how like black men don't cheat is the new vibe. we don't.
Black men.
Me too. You know, like there's a lot of these. We're working through our BS. Let's let colorism be the new. You know what I'm saying? I would love to hear from you. I definitely wanted to hear from you. But
OG, then we're gonna have it back to the one that was saying.
OG, original gentleman.
There it is.
Yes, sir.
So I do want to say, and I'm looking at you, and I'm like, wow, we have come so far. You guys, there's no reason to beat up on yourself. I'm sitting here, you gotta try to understand, I'm 66 years old.
Yes.
I married my wife 40 years ago. And let me tell you, her mother, her grandmother, handpicked me because my wife is dark skinned and I'm supposed to be this light skinned guy with the nose. Remember, y'all talking about colorism. But what we were talking about then is the nose, the lips, and everything else. And every guy that came to meet my wife, they had to go through this because her grandmother did not want her to go through what she had to go through. So she instilled it. And one time I saw my wife pinching my daughter's nose like this. I'm like, what are you doing? And she said her grandmother always told her to pinch your daughter's nose. These are things that were taking place years ago.
Yeah.
And even when I listen to y'all call each other black with such pride and so much. Now you gotta remember when I came up, if you called me black, that was worse than the N-word. Because black was a name that you didn't call him. Like, remember, everything we saw black on TV was ugly, not good, bad. And you guys know it. That's what makes it so great. You know it. You know it. You don't believe it, because you believe it, that's a lie. But you know, y'all know you are that. And you have to keep that going. You wear all your colors, light skin, dark skin, whatever shades that we come in, that's all right. That's how we are. From we are original. Everything comes from us. And you are there to make that happen. So I am extreme. I'm going home. I'm gonna be fired up with my wife. Where you been at? I've been hanging out with the young folks. Doing stuff. They ain't just drinking and partying. They ain't here plotting and planning.
Plotting and planning.
But you were saying, like, that's what I mean when I was talking about, like, real recognizing, whether it's in dating or whatever. Like, if you recognize it, you recognize it. If you don't, you don't. Like, and what if we don't forget that? What about those times that we do feel inadequate and, you know, we do face the majority, but, like, what you're talking about, like, what if we don't forget that? There's so much truth that's within us, and when conversations like this happen, and it like reminds us of truths that are already inside of us. And it's not anything new. There's nothing new in the sun. Like, this is all old information, but like it takes conversations like this to remind us, like, just pull it out, because that's why it's right, because it's true, and you agree with it, I agree with it, because it's right.
But
it's
how
in
do we
me.
pull that out if we don't? It's like, if we don't dig into what it is, you know what I mean? Like, if we don't like understand why we're incapable of pulling some of these things out, which we're not, but still just, you have to dig a little deeper, and you have to diminish the problem first in order to have that mentality at all.
And I think that just comes from me just always having that mentality, and I might just be like unicorns and rainbows in my head, because I've always
No, it's just
way,
it's all about
you know?
like your background. It is about you. Who was who?
Because you
like,
said you were fed into.
yeah, your
child.
parents were telling you this. My mom was not. My mom's for me. I honestly didn't know about colorism until I was in college. So I went to a white school. Because I had a dark skinned mother, I had a dark skinned father. It was never told to me that dark skin was wrong because I never had anybody to do
Let me ask you a
it.
question. So, real talk, right? So, like, nowadays, like, I don't know, like 2010 on, now it's like cool and trendy to be like natural and dark and sexy and all these things. To me, Afrocentric, being from Africa, being from the Caribbean islands, all that stuff is trendy and cool to me, and I feel like that's a great reminder. And I just hope that for the people who weren't exposed to that, it's a reminder, but from that reminder comes teaching that is not trendy, and teaching that stays, and teaching that we teach our kids, like, yeah, it was cool to be like, I don't know, like wearing all this back then and all this, and like buying dashikis at Rainbow and stuff like that, but like, do you know where it came from? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I would feel low-key offended as someone like from like a Caribbean island. I would feel low-key offended, but at the same time, I'd be like, I hope there's teaching that comes from it. You know, teaching that stays. Like, I'll take the trend, but I want the teaching that comes with it and that stays forever. You know what I mean? That's the problem. I'd be like, but at the same time, like, I hope somebody learns something from this. And it stays. You know what I mean? I just hope it stays. And I feel it will stay.
But the biggest thing is affirmation. Like, a lot of us seek affirmation from other people, opposed to, like we were talking about that earlier, opposed to looking for affirmation from yourself. Because, you know, for me, like, you know, being young, my parents are both African. So, of course, I got all the African jokes, and I'm also dark-skinned. So I also got that as well. But it took me through art. I was drawing with the ebony pencils, which is the darkest, shiniest sheen of black pencil. And I understood that black is beautiful through that. Not everyone can understand that. So the affirmation for that is, I understood that's for me. Hopefully somebody will basically enforce that into another little kid, or basically have the opportunity to impact another child, or just themselves. I mean, like even there's black men and women that are still seeking that at the age. And like we were talking about, whether it's an age gap, whether it's something from the age of when you're a teenager to the age of 30 and 40, that you realize that, my black is beautiful, or who I am is beautiful. But it takes a while. I mean, some people have to take the time to realize that they are beautiful, actually enjoy the fact that, my skin is melanin. Even though I gotta take care of it when it gets cold, make sure I'm but understanding that, the journey that you go through is also beautiful as well.
Yeah. And I think that, recognizing that it is a journey is so important. I mean, I know for me, one of the things that I had to really come to terms with was even my own privilege, being a little, being on the lighter side of this scale.
You're light-skinned, you can say it.
Yeah, but the funny thing, I never the funny thing is I remember when a lot of you're middle school, high school, when those jokes were I never really fully identified, because I was oh, I don't do the squint, I don't really listen to Drake like that. But I had to come. It was a privilege that I had to go to. I'm the oldest of 6 kids. And we're all we're different shades. All 6 of us. My mom is Kenyan. My dad is Black American. And my mom is actually fairly light, and my dad is pretty dark. And so that would always confuse people, because they'd be like, "Oh, how is she African?" I'm like, "What?" It's ignorance, exactly. And so it really took me I think just growing up, I think there was always this kind of unspoken understanding that it was easier for me just to go through life than it was for my sister, who's a lot darker than me, who is a year younger than me, And I think I didn't come to terms with that until college, and I think I really started to really I need to, I think recognize the fact that that's even a thing for me, that I have a privilege, there, and then, really kind of deconstruct that and really look at why do I like, what I like, what are my preferences, and how can I deconstruct that and really kind of renew my mindset. And so I think it's a journey, and our parents, my parents, they always affirmed this. I remember they would always tell my sisters, "Oh, you can't perm your hair, you can't get Barbie doll," all these small things that I didn't fully understand at the time. And then now looking back, and I'm I see why, they, encourage them to wear natural hair. Before it was cool, before it was trendy. I see why they, encourage us to listen to Black music. And all these those small things. And so. But I think even with those affirmations, I know for me, it was still a journey. Because I realized just how pervasive white supremacy is in our culture. That even with, at home, parents who kind of affirm you, being Black and affirm you and all that, you still, you watch TV, you read books, you go to the store, and, this small things seeing white families on products, you just realize that, you don't realize, but you're kind of trained to think that that's the norm, that's, what's best. It's a journey. I don't know, for me, it's
May I ask a question?
What? Real quick.
Okay.
Right before your Mercedes.
So I want to piggyback what you guys said, about, Black is beautiful, knowing your journey, because ultimately that's what it's been for my mother has always affirmed to me. We're, I wouldn't say the only 2 dark skin in our family, but there's about 3 of us. So she always went out of her way to let me know you're beautiful, you're gorgeous. But I didn't really receive it until I got to know myself, because I was always looking to the community to accept me. And growing up, dark-skinned girls weren't accepted like that. So it wasn't until I got to know myself, and I was like, my Black is beautiful, that I started showing up in places, knowing that this is what it is, I'm beautiful. And then I started seeing, because then now I'm predominantly white spaces. Then I started looking around the room, and then you look up, and it's all these people are in awe to see you. It's oh my gosh, can I touch your skin? No, first of all, not don't touch me. But you realize once you get to know yourself, you're able to
walk in that essence and project that, yeah, my black is beautiful, and regardless of what colorism issues people are walking in, you show up in that light, they're like, I have to stare, like something is different. Like I need to figure it out. Like you showing up being who you are challenges people to figure out like, wait, why do I usually feel this way, but I want this now? Like what is really going on? So it's like me getting to know myself caused that transition to happen. And then I really started seeing a lot of people like, oh, I don't date dark skin, but I need you. So it's like, no, that's not. I get it. I get the conversation, but it's also about knowing yourself, because when you know yourself, you're able to walk in a presence where that change can happen.
And that trickles down. Like for me, I had a very confident mom, but my mom was like an overcompensating kind of. She was, because she had problems when she was younger about being a dark-skinned woman. But I don't think she's ever recognized that. So my mom always had a negative tone towards like light-skinned women, and she just never liked them. And so for me, I didn't even realize any of that. So I did carry that, but once I kind of, like you're saying, got to know myself and understood who I was able to trickle that down to my mom, to communicate those things to her and say, Mom, I feel like you feel this way for this reason. And so, like, me learning about me is now, because my biggest thing is generational curses. Yeah. That is what colorism has done for that. Because it's just like, my mom is my project. Like, my mom is the person I'm trying to do the most work on. And a lot of that is just like, so me learning those things and me understanding those things and seeing these things helped me really be able to communicate that to her, and she listens to it. That's the cool part about it.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Honestly.
Honestly, she's pretty. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, she's like big eyes. Like pretty.
She got big eyes.
So about you, why?
I think she's beautiful. Yeah.
I just wanted y'all two to hear
but
that.
in actuality, I feel like her skin is more acceptable in our society now. And mine is like depreciated.
Wow.
I feel like it's like the pendulum swinging.
Yeah.
There's this.
Wesley Snipes is back.
Yeah.
And not even that. It's
And
real
I
matter in
feel
there.
that way, and I have a friend who feels that way as well. But I feel like she has this, like I don't want to be like kind of like white tear syndrome, where it's like, well, you had all this privilege, so now that you're feeling this way, you're not allowed to talk about it, or it's your turn to feel that way. So I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I feel like it's so important that we make sure that that doesn't happen, because that will just make the divide even worse. And then it also just shows, it just makes the solution even further, because then it's just going to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth.
And that's not lasting.
Why is my roommate? That's why I said she had big eyes. I can say that. We live together.
Yeah, we can't blame each other for how we were naturally born. Like when you talk about generational curses, there's so much pent on us from generations of the past, be it our family, be it communal stuff. Like there's stuff I picked up outside my house that had nothing to do with how I was raised. But I just picked it up because that was just the community I was around, you know? So we really got to get away from this condemnation of like, you know, you light and all y'all do is be pretty looking in the mirror or whatever, and I'm dark so I don't look as good. Like whatever, like kill all that, because none of that, because we're blaming each other for stuff we literally have no control over. You know what I'm saying? And how twisted is that for all of our trauma to then look in the mirror and say, I'm really blaming this person and going at them for something they have that they didn't. It ain't like you was in the womb like, hey guy, help me out, make me as a light with green eyes. Can you do that? You know what I'm saying? Like no, like we didn't choose none of this. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we got to embrace all of our beauty.
I really think that we need to make an effort, even though we all come from different shades and we all have different colors, is that we need to make the essence of beauty Black women that are not ethnically ambiguous, right? Like we need to make that a point, because nobody else does that. You won't go to China or Japan and they have the face of what a woman looks like a Malaysian. She's Asian, she's part Asian, she's one of them, but she's another part of them, but they'd rather have someone that is a reflection of what their culture is. And that's not hating on anybody else, right? I'm a very much a proponent to kind of like having this rainbow that we all have. But I think it's we've come to the habit of, because we all come from different shades, but we put on a pedestal someone that least looks like they're black and have both parents that are black.
So just real quick, to just kind of reply to what you said about other cultures, colorism is very real in Asia, in South America, and the imagery that they put out is the same imagery that we put out. They put out their lightest Asians, they put out their lightest Latinos. Like, that is just what happens.
Even in like South Asian countries.
Yep.
Yeah,
More
so it's
dark-skinned
not,
Asians
you
are
know,
black, like
the
that's
bleaching
so-
industry is a $1 billion
I
industry.
believe it.
Like double-digit $1 billion industry. So it's not that it's like, oh, okay, these Asian people are putting out every shade of their color. Indian people are showing dark-skinned Indians, light-skinned Indians, and that's what's happening. Like, it's in every culture. When you go to Asia, the billboards that you're gonna see, the commercials you're gonna see are gonna be very anti-dark.
Right.
And it's always gonna be this dark person went in this washing machine and they came out light, and you can do the same thing. So it's one of those things that as a culture, we do need to uplift all beauty. Whether if you look ethnically ambiguous, because a light-skinned girl being told that she's not black enough is the same thing of me being told that I'm not pretty enough because I'm dark-skinned. Like, you can't take one without the other.
I don't, to be honest with you, I don't think it's the same, because there's a history track record.
There is a history,
that.
but I
Like,
can't.
I did research, like, not to cut you off, like, I went to the Schomburg once, right? And I had to do a research for school, like, 5-6 years back in college. I went to, like, the New Amsterdam News, all these old newspapers, 1920s and 30s. They were telling women the way you get a man is to apply this bleaching cream or whatever.
Yeah.
I think, you know, it's like the whole Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, right? You need to do a complete reverse, right? We know that all lives are valuable, but there's a specific segment of society that are treated and that are kind of like exposed to a lot of injustices other people aren't. Not to say that other people are not. I'm sure there's white guys getting shot by cops, you know, or whatever. But there's a certain proportion. As a result, to kind of flip that switch, in my opinion, you need to reverse the course of history of what your community deems as beauty. Because for its existence in this country, light-skinned people, specifically on the women's side, rap videos, I like them long hair, red bone, little waist,
Trust
whatever.
me, I grew up as a dark-skinned woman,
No,
so these are the
true,
imagery that we
absolutely.
saw.
But from my perspective is that we need to kind of like stop being so inclusive. You have to make that balance. We need to kind of like promote blackness, not at the expense of other things.
Yes.
That's why you have to.
But that's what I'm saying.
You delivered it UPS, she delivered it FedEx. Same shit.
Same message. The only thing is, as the root of what Raven is saying, what you can't forget is that like the damage, whether it's pro-light skin or pro-black, it's still anti-black. It's the same thing. Like we lose either way. We don't win no matter who's in favor. So what we need to do is figure out how do we get on the same page and agree on what our love for our blackness is.
I was always attacked by black people. Like I was, you're dark, you're too dark to hang out with us, this and that. Growing up, my mom was in the fashion industry, so she would take me on the photo shoots, and I would have white individuals coming to me like, "Oh my God, you're gorgeous." And I'm like, "Well, my own people that I go to school with don't like me, but this white person over here is going like, oh, you're beautiful." And I've had that throughout my life, only until I can say at least the last 10 years, where I've had black people come up to me and go like, "Oh my God, your skin," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, thank you." And I had to really work hard to change my mindset in terms of like, okay, black people accept me.
Right. Because you weren't used to like basically being I don't want to say acknowledged, but just complimented.
Yeah, I wasn't. I mean, in my household, yes, my parents. Outside.
That's not on you. That's on our people. Like that.
No. I didn't. Yes, I had to go through a process of like, okay, I don't blame them. Getting like, you know, it's the way the culture is, unfortunately. But yeah, like I was saying, just growing up, it was a different like mindset. And I knew like people around me didn't share that same, you know, view. Where I would, like, me and my sister were used to like, oh, we like the, you know, little white guy or this and that, because we had that environment of, oh, they accept us. You know, it wasn't everyone, but majority in that certain, those fundamental years of my life, that's what's the case.
And I had a conversation with a cousin for like 3 hours who was married to a white dude, and she just kept coming back to that. Like, she just kept trying to tell me, like, John, y'all, black folk did not accept me. I talked this way, I acted this way, I was too proper, I was this, I was that. So eventually, what was I to do when my people didn't accept me? You know, and through that conversation, I could hear so much. I don't want to say self-hate, because I think that's a little far. Even though it may be active trauma, there's so much trauma that it was like, and that's what I'm speaking from. Is like, how do I tell her she's wrong when I was that kid in 9th grade. Like, why you talking so proper? You gonna get your blah blah blah. Like, I was that dude. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, how I'm gonna do that to you, then tell you wrong for what I did to you. You going the other route. You feel what I'm saying?
I think. Sorry, real quick. I think 'cause I grew up in a similar way. Like, I was teased by black girls. No black dudes was trying to talk to me, and so I was probably like in high school.
They're lost.
It is what it is. It was one of those things that, especially going to, you know, HBCU and like really being intentional about that after like my senior year and being like, no, this is where I want to go. Like, I want to go to an HBCU. I want to be surrounded by people who look like me, and there was colorism. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got called pretty for a dark-skinned girl. I was sitting in the audience. This light-skinned dude was like, I only date light-skinned girls with long hair because it's theirs. And I'm like, sir, what? Like, so...
Wait, go ahead and
then I just cut it, you know, about 3 inches. So the girl had length. So anyway, it was just one of those things where I had to reconcile myself and with my community and not see Cyrus as someone who's going to hate me for the way that I spoke, or the fact that, you know, I was a little bit different or not the normal black or whatever it might be. And it does take time, you know.
So
and
what
then,
can we do? Like, what can I do now for those brothers and sisters who feel that way? Like, because I have no idea. So how can we assist in that healing for our brothers and sisters who fight with that?
So I think it's just not to ostracize. For the person who speaks a little bit proper, to not tease them about that. You know, so it's something
or not praise them for that either. Like, I think sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes,
but I feel like we get praised.
I feel a little comfortable in white areas because of how I sound and how I talk. I'm just like, ooh, these white people ain't gonna make a big deal. I can say one thing and they'll be all good with it. Because that's how I sound, and
I think the root of it, to be an oppressed people, is a very painful, agonizing, and traumatizing experience. And so what that creates is a hypersensitivity, and it also provokes us to scrutinize each other. And so then that infighting comes, and we can't really see. So if someone makes a choice to say, you know what, I'm gonna marry Becky Sue, that's not necessarily a problem, but then that scrutinizing mind says, but why did they do it? And I think we would feel more comfortable if we could trust and know that they made that choice because they were aware and mindful of the situation, but they're still pro us. But oftentimes we get so disappointed in life, where it's just like, this person got an opportunity, failed us. This person had a chance, failed us. Mama failed me. Daddy, like, we've been failed so many times. And so how then do we say, all right, I give you the benefit of the doubt. Like, that's what the reconciliation is, where whoever makes the choice out, whatever the choice is, because to your point, it's true, like, my child is still black, no matter who I marry, and so my child is still going to be treated like I was. And so we got to get to that reconciliation. And I don't know what exactly, I know you posed that, I don't know what that actually looks like, but it does look like intention, it looks like consciousness, it looks like mindfulness, it looks like awareness, it looks like effort, it looks like a certain energy. And whatever that means in your path and your process, like, just make sure you're pushing that forward.
I think this is really awesome. Thank you guys. It's really empowering to me to see my brothers.
Yeah.
I'm honestly responding to Sarah, and what I want to respond to is kind of like the understanding of the why, like why dating outside of your race. Like growing up, I had a light-skinned sister, and like going out with her, hanging out with her, men flocked to her, like they loved her, and she was just really like beautiful, you know. And our family, whatever, we are different shades of color. But growing up, I was like, I heard Oprah say something like 70% of African American women are single, and she started saying like you have to start dating outside of your race if you want the chances, if you want the percentages of yourself to, you know, everyone wants to fall in love, right? So I guess unfortunately you have to compromise, like dating outside of your race, you know, like most black men are in jail, unfortunately. Like most black men who are educated aren't really dating women of color. Like I never really saw that in high school. I never saw that in college. And I moved to New York, and then I started seeing it. So I'm like, well, maybe it's possible to date in my race. So it's just like, for me, it's like coming to New York City has really changed my mind and changed my experience.
I think it's just a matter of being respectful of everyone's journey. Like I don't relate to what you just said, you know, but I hear you and I know exactly what you're saying and I understand exactly how you got to what you just said. And I think that's it. It's just we always want to go by this script. This is how it goes. This is exactly how it's supposed to be. This is like there's this script, but we just kind of have to respect each other's journey and how we get where we get to.
So I want to thank everyone for coming, to being part of this conversation, and really, like, one of the things that I was worried about was just people being silent. That was not the case, thank God. We touched on a lot of different things, dating, work, all kinds of things. And for our next event, you guys can follow us at Own Your I Am. We are actually touching on a lot of what we talked about today as far as colorism in the entertainment industry. That will be on November 16th. But yeah, so I just appreciate everyone's input, everyone's just candid and, you know, thought-provoking conversation. I hope that people learn some things from this conversation, learn some things about them, their preference, maybe their bias, if they have it, and can go out into the world and talk to people about their preference and their bias.